We're Daniel and Adam Jack, two cousins with a shared passion for adventure, quirky stays and the environment. After staying the night in some weird and wonderful places around the world, we've set out to bring our alternative eco-cabin concept home to Scotland's west coast.
So let's get right into it. We're filming this in September 2021. Before we go any further, we want to tell you a little bit more about this tourist accommodation concept that we've come up with. We think we've come up with something really exciting here. We're calling it an alternative eco-cabin, and it's going to be different to anything else you can stay the night in Scotland. Firstly, the cabins are being built locally from sustainable materials, and they're going to be powered by 100% renewable energy. Not only that, we'll be planting 10 trees for every single booking made in low-cost, high-impact areas around the world through our partnership with Ecology. Secondly, we wanted to kit out these cabins with all of the mod cons that are expected by the modern day traveller, from wood-fired hot tubs and unique interior design, to a fully equipped kitchen space and all sorts of entertainment features. But it's going to be so much more than that.
Each cabin will also come with its own theme and story. Take our prototype cabin for example, the Hive cabin. A trip here is going to be some buzz. Get stuck in, enjoy the nectars, and treat yourself to a stay that will be sweeter than sweet. The Hive is a space inspired by all sorts of bee, honey and hive related elements, and it will be based on the colour orange. You'll even find a one-of-a-kind artist wall mural painted by our good friend and artist Katie Forbes, which will be the focal point of the interior space and the cabin. We'll also be creating a full-on smart home tech-enabled sensory experience. That was a mouthful, by the way. For example, guests can give the voice command, Alexa, enter the Hive. The LED roof lights will dim, the Wi-Fi enabled blinds will close, the mood lamps will illuminate, and Honey Honey by ABBA will blast on the speaker. You can even taste the honey sweetie and smell the honey wax melt to complete the full sensory experience.
So we're going to have 5 eco cabins brought into our first site. Some with hot tubs, some without. Some that welcome pets, and some that won't. I suppose the question that you might be asking yourself here is, where are these going to be? Well, we'll be setting up shop on the wonderfully scenic Isle of Cumbrae, which looks a bit like this.
So here we have the Isle of Cumbrae. It's pretty much a big 10-mile loop, and with views like this, it's the perfect place for people who are after a relaxing island escape, which is right on their doorstep, quite literally. Cumbrae is what's known as Scotland's most accessible island, and it's just an 8-minute ferry across from our hometown of Largs. There's loads of transport links to get you here, so if you're coming by bus or train, it's really simple and easy to get to. If you're driving, you could leave Glasgow and be on the island less than an hour and a half later, so no matter where you're visiting from, it will be island time before you know it. On the island, there's sandy beaches, plenty of walking routes, and 360-degree panoramic views across the Firth of Clyde. Whether it's over to the snow-tipped mountains on the Isle of Arran, or back towards the mainland to Largs, the views are genuinely spectacular. The town on the island is called Millport, and despite being a small town on a small island, it's packed with places to visit and things to do. Millport has its own promenade and sheltered bay, and it's also packed with lots of cafes, bars, beer gardens and restaurants, so you're spoiled for choice when it comes to places to eat and drink. There's also fresh bakeries, cycle hire shops, a chocolatier and the island's very own gin distillery. Cumbrae is popular for outdoor activities such as cycling, hiking and fishing, and water sports such as paddleboarding, sailing and kayaking. If you're not one for getting in the water, you can always explore the surrounding Clyde River on boat trips leaving from both Millport Bay and Largs Marina. Cumbrae is also a paradise for nature lovers and wildlife watchers, with over 125 species of birds, seal colonies, porpoises and basking sharks. There's even a couple of islands in Millport Bay called the Elands where seals reside for most of the year. You can take a wee trip out on a kayak or a paddleboard to see them sunbathing.
So, as you might have guessed by now, Adam and I are 2 cousins from the Jack family, and this is proudly a family business venture. We chose to call our business Jack's Alt Stays. Jack's the family name, Alt for alternative, and Stays, somewhere you can stay the night. I guess it would be pretty useful for you to get to know us a bit better, so Adam, you're up first.
So, my name's Adam, the younger and slightly more handsome cousin. Growing up, I always loved coming up with wee business ideas, and I actually loved watching episodes of Dragon's Den, and funnily enough, it was pretty much the only reason that I decided to go and study business when I left school. I spoke about business ideas all the time at uni, whether it was different ideas for apps, starting up a clothing line, and at one point I wanted to get into rum distilling to set up a Scottish themed spiced rum, but nothing really stuck in the end. Once I graduated uni, I found myself working in a business-to-business sales role, which was essentially selling computer software. Exciting stuff. But business ventures was always in the back of my mind, so I spent many evenings and weekends developing different ideas that I had.
So my name's Daniel, and I'm the older and wiser cousin. And I guess my story starts about 5 years ago when I was working a dead-end retail career. I'd realised that there was a bigger world out there than the co-op, and I had this idea that I wanted to start a business. I wasn't entirely sure what yet, but a start-up business nonetheless. So I pretty much just said F it and quit my job. Then I headed to the big city. My 4 years in Glasgow were literally the best of my life. I lived in Sauchiehall Hall Street, so I got right in amongst the music scene up there. I actually ended up joining the Glasgow indie rock band Chris Gregg and the Merchants as the drummer, and I'm going to take this opportunity for a shameless music plug. Here's a wee sneak peek of our latest release. I'm the one that's bashing the shit out the drums at the back.
And when you're all alone tonight, on your right, giving you my blessing, alright. You can put your heart on the line, dancing but you're all out of time. You know this is real, but only you know. You're silent disco.
Definitely check out our Spotify, I'll stick a link in the description for that. Anyway, yes, Glasgow. I somehow managed to get myself a place in Strathclyde Business School, and 4 years later I came out with everything I needed to start this business. Apart from a concept, and apart from a co-founder. That's when Adam and I started knocking our heads together, and he can tell you how that went.
So where did this whole idea come about from? Well, I was still working in my software sales job, and Daniel was in his final year of university. Obviously, it was at the stage where Daniel was deciding what he wanted to do with his future, and we just decided to start meeting up and coming up with different ideas. At the time, I just came back from doing the North Coast 500 road trip, and I'd stayed in this really cool shipping container which had been converted into some tourist accommodation. I started to think about how there's all sorts of weird and wonderful accommodation out there, but a lot of it was just really basic. The more that me and Daniel did our research, we realised that there was a real opportunity here for something that was completely unique, eco-friendly, but was also kitted out with all the modern aspects of quality accommodation. We looked at all of these simple and actually really expensive glamping options across Scotland, which were essentially just a bed and a shed. And we got to the point where we decided that glamping was pretty much old news. We decided it was time for a new generation of tourist accommodation, and that's pretty much where the idea started. Since we were both busy during the day and living in the city, early stages of the business consisted of tenants-fueled brainstorming sessions at my flat in Glasgow, and to be honest, it was pretty much where all the good ideas came from. The idea in the beginning primarily revolved around converting shipping containers into eco-accommodation, but as you can imagine, it developed quite a lot the more we spoke. And then, as we decided where we were actually going to put these things, one of the biggest and most unexpected setbacks happened, the COVID pandemic. And we all know how that went.
The coronavirus has hit the UK.
Prime Minister, we've had the first casualty today.
Coronavirus has spread to at least 23 other countries.
From midnight tonight.
You must stay at home.
These measures are essential.
Protect our NHS and save lives.
Stay at home.
So that was it. Pretty much as soon as the lockdown hit, we moved out of the city of Glasgow and back to our wee hometown of Largs on the North Ayrshire coast of Scotland. From there, we continued to develop the concept, the brand and the website. Pretty much doing everything we could whilst in the midst of a pandemic and stuck behind a computer screen. To give you a better idea, here's a glimpse into our working life back in February 2021. Peak lockdown with terrible haircuts and blindly optimistically talking about launching our business in the summer of 2021.
Also, keep a wee eye out for my dodgy quarantine tash.
Hey, that was a good transition, by the way. How are you getting on?
Not too bad, mate, not too bad. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good, cheers, not too bad at all.
Superb. Well, we should probably set the scene for everyone watching this from the future. So currently, it's February 2021. Nicola Sturgeon hasn't let us out of our coop yet. We're still in peak lockdown and we're stuck in our houses, and to be honest, this is pretty much how day-to-day work looks for me and Daniel at the moment.
Yeah, it's also the reason that I've not had a haircut in about 8 weeks, so I'm beginning to rock a kind of early Justin Bieber look, and yes, it's the reason that we're not together talking to a camera side by side sort of thing. But I suppose as two guys from Scotland, this whole like talking to the camera thing is pretty unnatural for us, and you know, anyone from Scotland would understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll just try and get used to it over time. We can rely on the power of editing to get us through in the early stages.
Well, we've certainly come a long way since those tenants-fueled brainstorm nights in your flat in Glasgow.
Well, that's right. We've pretty much came a long way from the concept stage. We're now at the stage where, you know, the concept's been complete. We've managed to bag a site, obviously, in the, you know, the scenic Isle of Cumbrae. We've got all these individual themes for the cabin and everything sorted. We're currently in the process of getting this wall mural designed. The planning permission application is literally just about to go in, and cabin 1 is literally getting built at the moment. So, as you say, we have actually came a pretty long way since the concept stage. And you know, setting up a business in the middle of a global pandemic wasn't actually the brightest idea. But I think you know, gunning for this launch in summer, which leaves us about, what is it, 1, 2, 3, pretty much 3 months to get all of our shit together, get the cabins built and over to the island. So what do you think? Are you feeling optimistic?
I'm feeling optimistic, confident, terrified and stressed at the same time, but you know, anyway, suppose we better get busy then, eh?
Yep.
So here's the journey we've got ahead, from the point that we're at now to when we can welcome our first guests to stay the night in our cabins. We're going to continue to work with architects to complete the technical designs so that we can then kick off the cabin build soon. Once we complete the site purchase, we'll be getting the site plans drawn out and the planning application submitted. 8 weeks later, we should be in a position where we can get the diggers in, get the site prepared and get the first cabin in place. In theory, everything should come together nicely in about May and we should be able to welcome our first guests in or around June. But when do things ever go to plan? When do things ever go to plan? Oh, how right I was. Future Daniel and Adam here sitting at Crocodile Rock in the Isle of Cumbrae. Well, future to the point I recorded that last part, but still in the past from when you're watching this video now. But anyway, welcoming our first guest in June ended up being pretty blissfully optimistic by me and Daniel, but we're looking at timelines now and we're probably closer to accepting our first guest in about September time of this year.
Well then, it's officially September 2021. Daniel, how's the launch looking?
Well, we're not quite there yet, but promise we really are getting there now. To bring you up to speed, we're right in the midst of our planning application, which we should have a result for mid-October. More importantly, the build of our first eco cabin is nearing completion. In fact, take a wee sneak peek.
And if you want to see how we got here, you're going to need to wait to the build journey video too, which hopefully will be coming out very soon.
We've got a really exciting journey ahead of us and we'll be taking our cameras with us. So we're glad that you're joining us for the ride. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers!
Catch it!
Join us next time when we head up to the warehouse in Stevenson to check out the first chassis arriving and officially kick off our prototype cabins build.